Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Layer by Layer, the show about 3D printing and our place inside the industry. Today we're going to talk about the Slant 3D API, the Slant 3D Shopify app, some updates to Tangled that are actually quite substantial, and one giant product announcement. And then we'll wrap it all up with a discussion about how to manage time. But before that, let's go ahead and pay the bills. Today's episode is sponsored by the Slant 3D Etsy Corduroy plugin. If you are an international seller who's trying to get international distribution without having to ship across an ocean, if you are a 3D print farm operator who is tired of changing out spools, or if you're an entrepreneur starting up who does not want to have to build a print farm or have to deal with how to ship stuff, then you should use the Etsy Corduroy plugin. It allows you to get access to our entire print farms and print and ship parts directly to customers. All you have to do is either source or design the products yourselves, upload the files to the Etsy Corduroy app, connect it to your Etsy store, and then each time you get an order, that order will be printed from our farm. We will process and evaluate those parts and ship them directly to your customer. So you are able to go from 0 parts to 1,000,000 parts without ever having to lift a finger or lift a spool yourself. So the Etsy Corduroy plugin. If you've never heard about that before, we've got the Etsy plugin. All right, moving into the news. There is not any news this week. There are a few kind of like corporate announcements and that kind of thing, and some people got some grants and some stuff happened and there was some research, but none of it is communicable in an interesting fashion. So we're not doing that this week. There's not really that much about it. The one piece of news is that I was on the Additive Insight podcast talking about kind of like the history of the company and that kind of thing. But that doesn't count as news either. That's basically a corporate announcement. So there's not really any 3D printing news that I could point to this week or that I could find from ourselves or anyone else. We didn't have any submissions. There's nothing really going on. So this will make up for last week, because last week's episode was 45 minutes. So this episode will either be shorter or we'll just not have a news section. But going into like product updates, the Slant 3D API. We've updated slicer settings on that. We've been continuing to iterate those as people push through new parts. Right now, it's running very clean, and we fixed a lot of the issues. So like there was an instance with like cookie cutters. If you made like a cookie cutter with a point, there were times when going to an infinite point, the final part of it would be kind of partially printed because of a thin wall bug. So we got that cleaned out, so it's not an issue anymore. But if you're designing a cookie cutter or designing anything that comes to a point, don't come to a point. Design it to have a 0.4 width flat on top of it. And that will fix that problem just natively in CAD, because garbage in, garbage out. But the slicer is more robust now in that regard. So that is good. And the API itself, stable, rolling along. Tangled updates. Okay, so Tangled, actually, there's a number of updates with this. We had discussed it a little bit last week, but we're probably going to restructure Tangled around batches rather than continuous purchases. We're going to mess with it a lot because we're also going to like release the memberships. But there's a few things that we're going to do. Memberships are going to get formalized here in the near future, and a membership will give you free shipping and also access to like individual part purchases and that kind of thing. So if you want to purchase a single spool of filament or these different kind of non-typical orders, you can do that through membership. We may be adjusting membership a little bit from when we initially released it, but that will be coming through. Anyone who's not a member will be able to order standard type filaments, maybe more limited colors, but they will not be able to order as many formats, and they will probably have to start paying for shipping on all of them. So we're messing around with all of that. People inside of membership will also probably get a price discount. The other thing that we're going to do is we're going to start releasing batches, and these batches will be effectively kind of pre-order. Well, not pre-orders. No, we'll release the batch and we'll say like, here's 100 kilograms. It will ship in 7 days from when it is released. Order what you want, and then it won't go away again. Because right now we're in this up and down kind of a spike where there's surges in demand and drops in demand. And it really messes with our production schedule. to make sure that we're maintaining all those orders. And last week we had a truck drive into the river or something like that with a shipment, so it's just stuff. But going to batches would allow it to be a lot more consistent, and would then also allow us to activate a new price reduction inside of Tangled, we think there. So a few changes with all of that. One update, just logistically with what we're doing right now, our spool supplier has been a little bit slow getting us additional spools, and we're running out of spools. So new orders right now will potentially hold up for a little bit. And right now the listing says that they're available. 3 kg spools are fine, they're coming along, but 1 kg spools are held up because of the spool supplier, because we're in a lot of 1 kg spools. So we're getting that fixed. We had hoped and dreamed that maybe Spoolless would be able to come up here and fix it, but we're not going to get that deployed soon enough to address this. We got to get more spools in. But yeah, we'll get the more spools in. All of that will be more better. Tangled in general is going through a revamp. Right now we are working on installing another extruder for Tangled to keep up with everything. And that should help us as well too, because the new extruder is an upgrade from our previous ones, so that'll help in a number of different ways. But we got to get the electricians in and do all this stuff and wire it up and all the things. It's just like a job. It's a job. And Tangled isn't supposed to be a job. Tangled is supposed to be fun. Tangled has always been kind of a project that was like fun to do because it was sort of fun to stick it to people who were being lazy in the States and stick it to and be competitive with Chinese manufacturing and do it in a fun way and with a kind of a fun project. So that's what Tangled is. Tangled is not supposed to be a stressful job because it's gravy on what we do. We are a print farm company. We are building warehouses where our shelves make the products. Dealing with filament is not something that should be taking inordinate amount of time away from us during the day. But anyhow, that's the full Tangled update. We want to get it revamped there. Right now, we're so close to the Christmas season. We thought maybe we would release a Pet G before Christmas season. I don't think that'll happen, guys. We've got too much stuff going on, too many irons in the fire and things. But anyhow, Etsy app update. Yeah, Etsy Corduroy, sponsor of this podcast. The Etsy app and actually all of our applications have been in a really interesting spot. We were doing an analysis over the last couple of weeks and the apps are growing at 5% per week, which is amazing. And thank you so much to everybody who's been using them, trying them, and ramping up on them. It's really cool to see product market fit in that way, and also to have what is effectively a manufacturing application scaling in the same way as a software one. So that's very exciting, and thank you so much to everybody who's been using it. If any of you guys were early adopters in the beta and that kind of stuff, I recommend going back and rechecking it out. Like the Etsy app has done a huge amount of evolution over the last year. And just as far as like the customer dynamic and product dynamic and that kind of stuff. And we're continually adding more to it. But it's just, it's growing really fast. And those pennies into the piggy bank are starting to compound and come back and are growing in an interesting way. Our main priority right now is just making sure that we are managing and preparing capacity for the Christmas season right now. Because whatever is happening right now on the Etsy app or anything else, 10X's in November and December. So we have a lot of historical data for this. So we know how to prep for it all. It's our responsibility to ensure that these parts remain, that your parts are delivered reliably. Right now, all parts are shipping in under 5 business days as spec'd out on the Etsy app, and we're going to keep it there as even utilization continues to grow among both API users and the Etsy and the Shopify. Segueing to the Shopify app. Don't tell anybody, but it's done, and it's published. Just you and me. The Shopify app is out right now. It's been approved. It's loose. No, like for real. Right now, if you have a Shopify store, you can now connect your Shopify store to Slant 3D. And any order that comes through from your Shopify store, we will print and ship to your customer. So you now have 3D printing drop shipping that will ship in under 5 business days in Shopify. It's done. There will be a formal announcement video coming out day after this or something like that. But you guys who are dedicated podcast watchers get first dibs at it. So go crazy, go take a look. It's really interesting, guys. We're going to get the dev team to do a video, and actually probably as part of one of these podcasts, just do like a roundtable talking about the creation of the Shopify app, because we had to learn a bunch of stuff. And Shopify has changed a lot of the rules, so it turned into a more cumbersome project than we anticipated. But ultimately it came out really well, and it was great for the team to work with that because it was more formal than the original build of like the Etsy. So it's just more formalized. It has all the learnings from the Etsy, so it looks like that. It operates like that. It's very exciting. Within both the Etsy and the Shopify, I don't know how many folks here will care about it, but we will be introducing affiliate functionality into them very soon. So anyone who is a power user who wants to share it around with other people who are using it, we want to make sure that the community is able to get their beak wet during the whole thing. So we're introducing affiliate links here soon so that folks can share it around and see a return from that as it continues to grow. Both of these apps are part of our kind of long-term software strategy in general. We've built the API, cool, that's the bones. That's the first foundational layer. Then we have the plugins, which allow someone with more expertise to then plug in to our software without having to know how to write code. After that will probably be the Conjure app and similar apps to it, where the entire process of engaging with 3D printing is effectively invisible. So we're very excited about that. It should be a lot of fun. But yeah, the Shopify app is out right now, currently in the Shopify App Store. Check it out. And please do let us know if there are any problems. Like I say, it was a very formal process. They did very comprehensive testing on it all. So did we, but the Shopify qualifies it too. In order to have it on the App Store, it's like an almost iPhone app level of scrutinization. Scrutinizing? I don't know. They scrutinized it a lot. The Shopify app is very sound from multiple different sources confirming that. So it's exciting. It's loose now. And from our perspective at Slant 3D, it's exciting because it also gets us kind of out of the 3D printing exclusive industry. Like everybody who uses the Etsy app has a 3D printer somewhere. We think that a lot of the people who use the Shopify plugin will not necessarily have ever used a 3D printer before. So it's going to be an interesting dynamics, and it's very exciting because now more people can use the power of 3D printing and mass production printing. So it's very exciting in that regard as well. But we will talk about this a little bit more next week after like the real launch happens. So this is sneaky and like don't spread it around. But the Shopify app is available right now. Teaser, spoiler, early recall. But we'll be coming out. We'll be doing a lot of trainings around that, all that kind of stuff. There'll be a whole queued up batch of content around it. Okay. So coming up now on the discussion topic. How Gabe structures his day. So, if any of you guys didn't know, I'm the CEO of Slant 3D. So my daily duties involve having meetings with the different teams who are doing software dev and YouTube and production, making sure our production clients are done. I engage with the clients. I help out with some of the engineering. I wear a lot of hats. I do a lot of stuff. I am very hands-on. I am not a manager CEO who's like, delegate everything. I don't do that. So my days are full. And we're a startup, a tech startup, in a reasonably small business yet. So there's requires a lot of involvement and a lot of training within it. I generally describe my job as my main job anymore is the people inside the company, making sure that the ship is steered. But then, in addition to that, since I am the founder, I am also the one who works for free. So then my time goes to places where someone else's time shouldn't necessarily go, because it would either make them miserable or be distracting to them. So that's how my time is split between strategy and team building, and then getting the work done, whatever it may be. So day is full, day is busy. Right now, for example, this podcast is being filmed at 9:30 p.m. on a weekday. The day started at 7:15, officially in office, I think, something like that. So that's where we are. But I'm not going to go through like what a day by day looks like, breaking down hour by hour, because that's not useful. My day is different than anybody else's day will ever be, and you shouldn't ever try to fully clone someone else's schedule and system, because schedules are like people; they're all different. There's a few kind of core principles that I use for structuring my week, my day, my hour, to make them efficient as possible, but also sustainable. Because when you're doing 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, that'll grind on you a little bit. If you're doing 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, that will grind on you a little bit. So, first of all, within the structure of my any time period, each day, each week, and each month to a degree, I have a single priority. A single priority for each one of those timelines. So like this month, we're going to launch the Shopify app. That then back analyzes to, okay, what are the 4 main things that we can do each week? Well, we're going to build that feature, that feature, that feature. And then within any given day, here's the one thing that I got to get done that day. And that is the question that I ask. What is the one thing that has to be done today, this week, this month? One thing. Not 10, not 20, not 50. One thing. This is the one thing that has to be done. Everything else could potentially slide, but this one has to get done. The reason I do this is because it makes sure that you know what is most important, and you make sure the most important thing is done first. Regardless of if there are fires burning over there, you don't sacrifice the important for the urgent. That is the reason for this priority. It's like, oh, we got to get parts out today. I'm like, could it wait until tomorrow? Probably. Therefore, I'm going to make sure that today's priority is done first. It keeps it very clear what needs to be done. It also relieves pressure because generally some of these daily priorities can be done in like an hour, but some of them might take 6 or 12 or whatever it happens to be. But it allows the entire day to be available to it, which relieves the stress of and the bad thinking of like compressed timelines on it. So there's the main priority. You get that once that one is done for the day, then you can start moving down your to-do list of other items. And that happens throughout the day. Now, this is broken a little. This is in the fungible time. These priorities occur inside of fungible time. Non-fungible time are scheduled events. Like, hey, you got to film podcast on this day. We have a team meeting at that time. There's these kind of things. Scheduled, non-negotiable blocks. Going through college and all the rest of it and studying all of this and prepping out how I do my schedule, I looked at all the ways of doing it. And there's a very extremist way that some people say, like, oh, Elon Musk does it this way. And I think that's bullshit. But the time blocking is necessary because you have to have timelines on stuff. Otherwise, things spread. But people take it to an extreme where they're like, I got every 15 minutes of my day broken out. I don't do that. I block out every 1 hour to 30 minutes of my day because a lot of my meetings are like 30 minutes. I'm going to have a client call right there, that kind of thing. Therefore, there's a follow-up 30 minutes of like, oh, what's going to happen in that time? Well, I can throw in those two things. Time blocking is very useful because you can build out your calendar and your calendar serves as a reminder of where I'm supposed to be. Like, no joke. Like, I just finished that meeting. What is my next thing? Because I have no idea. I scheduled it 3 days ago. It's like, oh, there we go. And even then, it doesn't always work. But within my time blocking, I don't always necessarily place a particular task in it. Of course, there's the scheduled meetings. There's 30 minutes for that, 30 minutes for that, so on and so forth. But then there are blocks of time where I say, this is for the priority, or this is for this type of work. I structure my day around when I'm most effective. I'm most effective early mornings and late nights. Afternoons, I am less effective. But those are generally good times for meetings or kind of busy work. that's not really cognitively intensive. So maybe working on some machinery or doing some rote task or something like those. Having a client call where I'm absorbing information, but I'm not necessarily decision making for them. That kind of thing. So certain blocks don't necessarily have a deliverable inside of them. They're like, work on this in this time. I try to build a deliverable into it at some point and try to build those blocks so that there's a thing of like, finish that, finish this task, finish that task. But again, those have to remain ambiguous sometimes because there is flexibility in a given day. I have to have firefighting as kind of blocked out on the calendar. Like, here at this time, this is my buffer hour, my overflow hour, because something's going to go wrong at some point today or this week, and I need that hour to go there. So, yes, each day has a theme and a primary deliverable, that main priority for that day, and then each week has a theme and a primary deliverable for that week. And then more broadly for the month, but that gets squishier because we're a startup, we move really fast. So you have the main priorities, those serve as your North Star, and also the main things that have to get done in order to move the needle. These are actions or deliverables that either create a large amount of revenue or are strategically very important to the company. Like, should I go pack boxes for 2 hours, or should I spend half of that writing a job posting for someone to come in and pack boxes? That's the thing. You can fight fires, or you can go spend the time to build a fireproof house. That's the thing. Build a system or continue working in the bad system. Those are the things. So that's how I decide what the priority is. Then throughout the days, I block out an hour in about 1 hour increments where I'm supposed to be and what I'm supposed to be doing, because there has to be I cannot have an openly broad day. I have to have meetings and I have to be consistent about those so that the rest of the team is able to engage with me and have me make the decisions that I need to when I'm available to make sure that we're getting stuff done when we need to. It is incumbent upon the team to be ready in those meetings with the things that they need and what to request at that time. Because with my time blocking, I become very Nazi-ish about my schedule. If you come to me, if someone on the team comes to me outside of their meeting time, if I am able to multitask and listen to them while also working on the thing that I actually care about and it has that time, that's okay. But if I am not able to multitask, I'll be like, no, go away. I'm not talking about that right now. Like, literally, because it's like, nope, that is reserved for when my brain is in that state of mind to think about that thing at your time that's set for it. Right now I'm thinking about this and I'm not going to be distracted. So whatever I am doing in that particular hour is what I'm doing in that particular hour. If a distraction or something that comes up is more important, I'll readjust. You stay within reason. But that is the easiest way to start introducing stress, because lack of control is where stress comes from so much. Either not being able to take action or not knowing what action to take. That is the two sources of stress. As soon as you've taken the action, or made a decision, stress disappears. You're like, cool, we're rolling that direction. Stress from bad decision making or stress from, I'm going to say, anxiety about the decision that you made, I get over it. Because you can't. Once you've done all that you can do, you got to let it be. Say, like, that's in the Lord's hands, moving on with life. And then you go on to the next things. I am anxious about all kinds of things, all the time. But controlling what I think about at any given time makes sure that I don't get in some kind of thought spiral about something stupid. So that's pretty much how my day is structured and why it is structured in that way. You have meetings and consistency within the day to make sure that the rest of the team is able to engage with you. That's your interface layer. A schedule is an interface layer so that other people know where and when to find you and know that you're available for them in that moment. It also prevents meeting bloat, where people are like, hey, can I talk for 5 minutes or something like that? And it turns into 2 hours and you end up wasting 2 hours when you should have been doing the other thing. So stringency of schedule is necessary there. Most important deliverables as far as the priorities for the day and the week. I make sure that those are done every week, regardless of how little or much time it takes. Once those are complete, then you can move on to ancillary stuff, moving down the to-do list of random things, because there's always a list of 1,000 things to be done. So you have those priorities, you work through them, they keep you guided of what is important. Those are the things that make a significant impact on your day. Those are the big actions that radically move revenue and really matter. Otherwise, you get into busy work of like, oh, I'm going to go do an Amazon return that will save us $20, but I'm not going to quote that client who's worth $1,000 or something like that. That's one of those silly sort of decisions. No, you go take care of that one first and potentially lose the return or something like that. That's how you prioritize that stuff. So you have the priorities, make sure you get them, and then from there you insert them into the time that's available between the scheduled times. Very often what I do is I have like meetings sort of condensed around about midday or so. And then morning is setup, engagement, seeing what everybody's doing, making sure that we're all on par, making sure that all the little rough edges are done. And then afternoons are kind of busy work kind of stuff. And then very often evenings, like right now, are very often for like creative work. Evenings and weekends, because for creative work, that is best done when you're kind of free and unencumbered and you don't have the fear of someone interrupting you. As a manager, it's very easy for folks to wander into your office with a question, and I have to be available for that kind of stuff. But that messes with your flow. And in a creative process, you really want to maintain that flow. And it's not something that you can like get into a lot. So like very often I will film like 2 or 3 videos on a weekend around like design. And then they're edited throughout the weeks coming along. But sometimes though, if you got to knock out a video in an hour or something like that, or whenever the slice of time that's available, that's fine, but it's much less comfortable. And that starts introducing stress and lack of control again. So maintaining the schedule, maintaining the rhythm, all helps there. So that's the discussion on that. I wish I could sum it up a little bit better, but number one, I would say give yourself a break and say that there's one thing to accomplish today and one thing to accomplish this week. I like that method a lot because it makes sure you're working on the most important thing first. You get that done. Once that's done, you have the big win. Then you can start moving down the to-do list of little ancillary things. And make sure that you have a schedule. I block out my schedule within 30 to 60-minute increments for calls and engagement with people. If there's loose time and that kind of stuff, I'll do odd jobs and that kind of thing. There's always something to do, so you can fill the time if you want to. But having the schedule gives you consistency, gives your team an interface to talk to you. So it's like, that meeting, this is when we get to talk to Gabe about YouTube. This is when we get to talk to Gabe about software, that kind of stuff. The schedule is as much for you maintaining control and consistency in your own schedule, as well as for everybody else to be able to talk to you at the appropriate times. So yeah, that's how I manage my time. As far as the rest of it all goes, like, yes, it is a minimum of 12 hours, 7 days a week. I have maintained or had that schedule for over 10 years now. I had it through college. In college, I did school, but then I did a bunch of other stuff too on the side. I think I worked 2 or 3 jobs when I was in school, so it's been native to me. I also grew up on a cattle ranch to where you work from sun up to sundown, and when you've done that your whole life, it's not that big of a deal. People have a real stigma around more than the 8 hours in 1 week or the 40-hour work week, and the 40-hour work week is entirely arbitrary. And that is not much time. That is 1/3 of the week, of the active conscious week. Like after you work 8 hours in a day, you have another full 8 hours for groceries, living your life, playing games, going to the bar, raising the kids, doing whatever else it was. You have a full work day outside of the work day each day, and then you can still sleep for 8 hours, and that's perfectly doable. So you have 8 hours for the job, 8 hours for life, and then 8 hours for sleep. That's a lot of hours. And I understand that I'm like a single dude and my life is very simple in many ways. But like 8 hours to live life 4 days a week, and then you also have the weekend. You have more. Everybody in a typical job have more hours for life than they have in work. So I never understand the argument of work-life balance. Life inside the United States already outnumbers work by a full 30%. Because you have 2 days on the weekend, which are both 16 hours. So there's 32 hours on the weekend, 40 hours during the week. So it's 72 hours of life and 40 hours of work each week. And you're still sleeping 8 hours every night. So I understand people working multiple jobs. That's why I would encourage people to work multiple jobs, especially if you're young and single. Why not? Just get it knocked out. What else are you going to do? Hike? Ugh, it's terrible stuff. I have always had a very extreme schedule, a very work-based schedule, to where it's not this. People look at it as like hustle culture, and it's not. It's a muscle. It's like looking at the amount of work that I do is a muscle that I have cultivated over more than a decade, to where it's not a big lift and it's not some extreme or unhealthy action to take. It's simply the thing that I do. So, yeah, I never understood the conversation around it. There are many days that are more than 16 hours. I don't enjoy those. I like sleeping 8 hours a night. But outside of that, it is about getting the work done with the time that's available. So, yeah, my schedule is extreme, and I work to fill it all the time. But I think it's only extreme because the perception is so warped right now. I mean, and this is always frustrating to me too, because if you compare that to Europe, Europe works 35 hours a week, so you got 35 hours to 78 hours of life, which is even more cockamamie. But then you have China, who are exceptionally work ethic focused people who work 6 days a week, 10 to 12 hours per day. And many of them will end up working on Sunday also. They have 1 billion people, and that 1 billion people is working at least twice as many hours as we are. So of course they're going to run around us on everything. And that's always, and it's like the conversation that I have with US-based labor is just ridiculous, that the idea that more than 40 hours is unreasonable. We're in the States, that's the new standard. Okay, fine, more than 40 hours is unreasonable, but it's not, especially not if we want to continue to be a world power. Suck it up. There are lots of people who have to work way more than 40 hours and are just fine with it. If you hate your job so much to where it being 30% of your weekly hours is too much for you, go get a different job. The one grand benefit of the United States is that there are other places to go. And people who do want to work hard, leave them alone. It is amazing to me. I've talked about my schedule a couple times before on the podcast, and you see people in the comments like, this is the 1980s overwork kind of thing. And I'm like, no, it's just hard work, and it's not a bad thing. And please do not spread the idea that hard work is a bad thing, because that is deeply evil to me. The easiest way to achieve success is to put in more hours, to practice more, to get more reps in. And the easiest way to get more reps is to put in more hours. So, and heck, even if you're a kid who just came out of college or whatever else it was, and you're paying off student loans, yeah, you're single, you have nothing going on. You should have a full-time job, and then 4 hours a night, go drive Uber or something like that to add up some extra cash. If you're not doing that and you're whining about your debts and your bills, shut up, because you're not using your time available to you. I have very little sympathy for folks in that situation, because if you're young, single, and healthy and all the rest of it, and you're not working a job and a half to get yourself out of a bad situation, then you're not going to get yourself out of a bad situation. Suck it up. Like, that's your decision. That is not the world's fault. That was your decision. We might have gone off the rails. I did only sleep 4 hours last night. So this podcast might get me in trouble now. I don't think so. I stand by all the stuff that I just said, if I remember it all correctly. But yeah, the number of hours, there's, in the United States especially, there is a fear of more than 40 hours that is becoming pervasive. And that really shouldn't be the case, because 40 hours is nothing. It's really nothing. And there's so much that can be done if you do more than that. For those of you who do want to do the work, like seriously, if you add another 2 hours, add another 4 hours to the end of your day, you still have 4 hours to do stuff. You can watch 2 movies at the theater, or take a girl on a date and then dinner, and then still sleep 8 hours in the night. You're not losing sleep at all if you added 4 more hours onto your workday. You would be working a secondary job, which would give you more income. You would still be able to do your core job just as well as before. You could expand on your current job so that you could gain more skills. And if you're in a functional, good organization, then that extra skill will then be rewarded because you get better, and then you get promotions or raises or bonuses or whatever it happens to be because you do your job well. And the boss also sees that you come early and stay late, and you're doing all the very simple things well. Those who eat at the edges, who come late and leave early, that is perniciously bad, because it's not that much time. And heck, I don't care if it's 15 minutes early and 15 minutes late. Oh, an extra half hour a day that I'm not getting paid for because I'm salaried or something like that. No, you're showing that you're a functional and reliable human who can show up to work and suffer through it. And any reasonable organization will recognize and reward that. But if you are someone who comes 15 minutes late and leaves 15 minutes early, you should be fired. And you shouldn't have that job because you hate it. So why are you there? We were talking about how to organize a day, and it got into number of hours. But this is something I'm passionate about, because this is the thing that, like, the United States is getting very soft about this, and it's frustrating. And yes, I come from a very work ethic background of waking up with the sun and going down with the sun and all the rest of it. That doesn't really exist anymore. And it's frustrating that it doesn't exist anymore. But especially when we are in competition with a country that has no problem with it. And they're proud to do that. And people are proud. Like in China, people are proud of their work. They are aggressive about it. And no, it's not necessarily that they enjoy it, but they are proud of it and aggressively competitive about it, because they know that they're competing with a bunch of us soft Americans who want to go home and drink craft beer after 8 hours. And that is a pernicious, that is a ubiquitous attitude over on that side, which is why they've been able to go from mud huts to second world power in 30 years. 30, 40 years, but that's incredibly quick. And while there's instabilities inside of it, it's not that this is not one of them. So I have no sympathy for the people who are anti-work in some sort of way, or want to reduce the number of hours in the work week, or go to the 4-day work week and that kind of stuff. That is obviously regressive. And we see it with European countries. No European country is a force to be reckoned with because of things like this. They just stop. And I apologize to the Europeans coming up, but like, you guys aren't in the game. You're not the ones building the data centers for the next generation of AI. And the guys at OpenAI are working 80-hour weeks. And quite frankly, guys at the startups in Europe who are doing stuff that are significant are working 80-hour weeks. So it's achievable and it's doable. It's also demonstrable that appears to be necessary, because that's why startups are able to outrun corporations. But anyhow, okay, I'm going to leave that be. That's a long enough show, and we've gone off the rails enough. But I'll leave you with the main note of what it was. If you want to emulate how I structure my day, I start with a priority for the day and a priority for the week. I make sure those things get done first. Those things are large items that will impact the company, have some high amount of leverage attached to them. And then from that, I move down the to-do list in order of what I think is next most important. And then, and my days are structured around a schedule with open times that are dedicated towards the priority or particular types of work, and then meetings so that the team is able to interface you. That is a schedule is the connective tissue so that everybody else can talk to you at the correct times so that everybody's aligned. All right. Sounds good. Have a great day, everybody.